Tyler Riewer is the creative director at Charity Water, the nonprofit bringing clean and safe drinking water to people in need around the world. He travels the globe to meet the people that Charity Water serves, collects stories about the transformative impact of clean water, and dreams up new ways to share those stories with the world. Prior to joining Charity Water, Tyler spent 9 years working in advertising, where he created content for brands like Nike, Red Bull, and A&E. A native Nebraskan, Tyler graduated from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, where he studied mass communications, advertising, and English. All right, we'll let you take it over, Tyler.
All right, let me share my screen here. Okay, everybody can see this?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Megan, for that introduction, and hello to the rest of you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am so excited and honored to be speaking with you. As Megan mentioned, I grew up in Nebraska. I studied advertising in college, was very involved with our local ad federation, and just have wonderful memories tied to those events, those relationships, and all of this feels extra personal. It only makes me loathe the pandemic more, because I have no doubt that this is a room full of people I would have loved to have met in person. I'm going to talk a little bit about Charity Water today, some of the problems that we're trying to solve, in hopes that the lessons we've learned might benefit the stories that all of you are telling as well. Right now, in this moment, there are families in Niger, in West Africa, who are collecting water just like this. It's evening time in Niger, about 7 p.m. So many people are lined up, standing above these 1,000-year-old holes in the ground. They are pulling dirty water up out of the earth by rope, one bucket at a time, so that they can cook dinner or wash dishes, maybe give their kids a bath before it gets dark, even though the water looks like this. That isn't unique to Niger, of course. Women in Madagascar today got up, collected water from riverbeds like this one, digging holes in order for a small amount of water to pool at the surface. Women in Uganda have been filling jerry cans at nearby swamps and ponds. The same is true in India, where your water source is often the same place that you go to bathe or go to the bathroom and get your drinking water. It's also true in Ethiopia, where families often have to fend off livestock because available water sources can be so limited. All of this for water that can contain leeches, worms, frogs, all kinds of debris, water that has to be filtered through cloth in order to remove sort of these substantial chunks. And that's just the stuff that you can see. The stuff that you can't see is even worse. Invisible bacteria that makes families sick, that leads to diarrhea and dehydration and trips to the health clinic for medicine that many people can't afford. On top of all of that, it is backbreaking work. Water is a burden that falls almost exclusively on women and young girls. They are particularly responsible for collecting water for their families. They are spending hours every day walking with these 40-pound jerry cans on their backs. This would be a problem if it was 1 million people, but it is not 1 million people. It is 785 million people. That is 1 in 10 of the humans living on this planet. And just to put that into perspective, and I just want you to try to really picture this, it is twice the population of the United States. You just imagine all of the cities combined, from San Francisco to Denver to Rapid City to Chicago to New York. You mash all of those up and you double it. That's the size of this crisis. Maybe easier to imagine in terms of South Dakota's. Try to picture every town in South Dakota: Aberdeen, Brookings, Yankton, all the way down to Watonka and White Rock. Yes, I did some homework, but all of those combined is not the number. It's multiplied by 887. That's how many people on this planet lack access to clean and safe drinking water. So that's the problem that we are working to solve. Charity Water is a nonprofit organization on a mission to bring clean and safe drinking water to every person on the planet. We're off to a pretty good start. In just over 14 years, we funded nearly 65,000 water projects, giving clean and safe water to about 12.6 million people in the world. So that's about 1.5% of the total problem, which still means we have a ways to go. So this is the real question. How do we get there? What does it look like to solve the water crisis in our lifetime? It's very complicated because it's different in every country. In the Thar Desert of northern India, water doesn't exist. Our local partners there are delivering these rainwater harvesting systems, these massive concrete cisterns that collect and safely store enough rainwater to last each family throughout the year. In places like Cambodia, water is readily available in rice fields and ponds, and it's not about finding water, it's about making dirty water clean. So our partners there help families build these really inexpensive filters so you can pour dirty rust-colored water into the top, and 99.9% bacteria-free crystal clear water comes out of the bottom. In Ethiopia, the dry season in particular makes water hard to find, almost non-existent at times, but it does exist. It's just deep below the surface of the earth. So our partners here are bringing in drilling rigs and building tap stands that can pump clean water up from deep underground to the surface. All over the world, we're empowering these incredible local teams who are focused on drilling, building these massive pipe systems. They're focused on education around sanitation and hygiene. They are experts at finding the right solutions and establishing infrastructure and partnering with local governments. The list goes on, and it does take all of those things. But the biggest challenge, the real challenge, which I'm sure is true for some of you as well, is money. That is the hardest part about what we do, because we are not salespeople, we're fundraisers. And we don't have the luxury of giving customers something in return. There is no exchange in the transaction, nothing to purchase. We are asking people to freely give away their money, and it's a completely different game, especially for nonprofits, and especially in our current world, a world full of noise and spam calls and a million content options and new platforms and fake news and more need around the world. Even the idea of competition is different. Our competitors for Charity Water aren't just organizations who do what we do, something like water.org. Our competitors are not just other cool places that you could give your money, like Pencils of Promise or New Story. We are also competing on a very human level for things like attention and emotional investment and trust. So yes, the water problem, or the water crisis, is the problem, and the solution is money, but the problem is also money, and the solution to that is much more complicated. It certainly changes the way that we need to be thinking about marketing and storytelling, and that's what I want to walk you through today, in hopes that some of our learnings will prompt ideas for you and your business or organization as well. The very first lesson for us, really the root of all of our storytelling, is that it's about hope, not guilt, right? It's about inspiration. Many of us grew up with this this older model of charity, this black and white footage of kids with distended bellies and flies on their faces, just these really horrific images that made you feel powerless, right? It's so overwhelming. You don't know how to make a difference. You almost feel guilted into giving. We believe that giving should feel good, that every story we tell should be rooted in hope and opportunity for a better future. You'll see this in every one of our stories, every social post. We are rooting our stories in goodness and really trying to intentionally make our audience feel powerful instead of powerless. Even when the story is hard or sad or overwhelming. This woman, Molotani, we met in Malawi back in 2014, 2013 maybe. She's standing in her water source. She was coming to this riverbed 7-9 times a day to collect water for her family. This was a place of sadness, of sickness. I mean, so many negative connotations with this place, but it didn't change who she was. She was this charismatic, loving, kind, happy, joy-filled mother, and the water source didn't define her, right? So our story about Molotani is really not just about her situation. It's about who she is as a person and the opportunity for her future and the future for her children. And I think a lot of this comes from the impact that we've seen. We say water changes everything because time and time again, we've heard these incredible stories. You know, a community gets access to clean water, health immediately starts to improve, and healthier families have more time to work or go to school. When you're not spending hours a day collecting water, you now have the other side of this opportunity cost, where you can be putting your time into new business ideas or learning more, even spending more time with your family or resting. But these stories are just exponential. It leads to empowered communities and new leadership and economic growth at a community level, and then a regional level and a country level. It just gets bigger and bigger. One favorite story that I'll share really quick is a woman named Helen, who we met in Uganda, really in the early days of Charity Water. And Helen's community, for years, for most of her life, didn't have access to clean water. So for decades, Helen had spent most of her days walking and waiting to collect water. It was a distant water source, so she was spending hours doing this. Basically, over the course of the day, she could only bring home 2 jerry cans. This is about 10 gallons of water. And just to put it into comparison, the average American family of 4 uses 400 gallons of water per day. So you can imagine, every day, Helen was forced to make choices. Am I going to use this water for cooking or cleaning or bathing? Does somebody need their clothes washed? Should I cook a meal? Or are we drinking this water? And every day, Helen had to make these choices, and every day she put herself last. She put her entire family first. So with 2 children, 1 husband, and only 10 gallons of water, Helen was really making this ultimate sacrifice. We got to go back to Uganda and see Helen after her community had gotten access to clean water, and she was at the front of this group of people who came running over to our team, just so excited to share. And she said, I am happy now. I have time to eat. My children can go to school. I can work in my garden, take a shower, and then come back for more water if I want. I am bathing so well. And because she was finally being able to take care of herself, she said, now I am beautiful. You just hear incredible stories of transformation, but never before had we heard somebody talk about that sense of dignity, the feeling of beauty, and that connection to clean water. So really the lesson learned here for us is that people never forget how you made them feel. And this is such a core part of the stories that we're telling. They have to be rooted in hope and opportunity to make a difference. This next lesson is really about being who you say you are. And all of this ties back to values for Charity Water. Just a few quick stories. Early on, before my time at Charity Water, we had this large fundraising campaign to bring clean water to people in the Central African Republic. And our founder and a team of people said, we're going to go to CAR, we're going to live drill, we're going to show you in real time the impact of all the money that you guys gave or raised in this moment. And got to the Central African Republic, started working on this water project with our local partners, and it just wasn't working. The ground was too soft, the soil kept collapsing. Essentially, we couldn't find a way to make it work. And I think the story was profound to me because it would have been really easy to pivot, to try to buy yourself more time, or to say you're having technical difficulties. And instead, our founder said, no, let's go live and just tell people the truth. And essentially did that very thing. They went live and said, no water for our birthday, for this birthday campaign. That's just the complexity of the work. It's not always easy, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to keep trying. But by taking people on that journey, trusting them to stick with us, we let them fail with us, and then the success, when we ultimately went back and brought clean water to this community, the success was that much sweeter. We found other ways to really focus on values like integrity, innovation. We've put GPS units on drilling rigs so that we can be, giving people updates on the location of the rig they may have helped fund, giving them their own Twitter account, so they're updating you in a place that you show up every day to check social media. We found different ways to showcase what goes into a water project, try to be really transparent and show every single part and piece and person that it takes to build one drilled well. This is one drilled well in Ethiopia, $10,000 to $12,000 well that looks like this. In the end, we did the same in Cambodia, where we tried to show what a community's worth of biosand filters, 28 bags of sand, 28 bags of gravel, all the cement. This is every single part and piece you fund when you fund communities worth of clean water in Cambodia. And that's ultimately what the biosand filter looks like. We've invested in remote sensor technology. Google gave us a grant years ago, $5 million grant to try to investigate what it would look like to monitor the amount of water that's flowing in our water projects. So we created these sensors and have continued to evolve what this looks like. But this is technology that we've built that really is just meant to hold us accountable. It monitors the amount of water that's flowing at any time. It is indestructible. It is weatherproof. It has, it's transmitting data. It has a battery that lasts 10 years. So for about little over $100, we can put this insurance policy into the well and know from our office in New York City or from our local partner's office in Tigray, how much water is flowing at any moment. And more importantly, if water stops flowing, if something happens and we need to send a mechanic to check it out. So we know the people who get access to clean water will continue to have access to clean water for years to come. We put all this data onto our website. We prove every single project that we fund on our website through Google Maps. You can go and see your project, see its location, see information about the community, and now in some cases, see the sensor data, see how much water is flowing when the water goes up and down over the course of the day. But the lesson here is really rooted in values. How we do it says the most about who we are. This third lesson is one of my favorites. It's really about relatability, finding a way to make this experience of collecting water or drinking dirty water real for somebody who's never lived or imagined that life. And one of my favorite examples, we went to Ethiopia in preparation for a gala that we were hosting and spent 2 weeks in one community. We tried to get to know everybody in this community, get a sense of what their life looked like without access to clean water. We spent the first week just really trying to understand what are the roles in this community. We found out that if you live here, you're either a farmer or a shepherd or a mother or a student. Everybody kind of falls into one of those categories. No matter who you are, your life revolves around dirty water. And based on the season, you may have a small trickling stream that's kind of close by. In the dry season, you might be walking a few miles to find some other source of water for your families. In our 2 weeks, we went and tracked down the oldest man in the village, this guy on the right, who was either 98 or 91, nobody knew, including himself. We met the youngest baby in the village, really just trying to get a sense of how water impacts everybody who lives here. And then in the second week, we set up essentially a big assembly line. We had people come in to this first station, sort of an interview station, where we got to ask them a few questions about their life and how it's impacted by the water that they drink. They sent people over to a second station where we took a video portrait, got to bring each person to life a little bit. And then we had a third station where our photographer was taking these beautiful portraits of every person in the community. So over the course of those 2 weeks, we captured 407 stories, every person over the age of 4, and then came back and put them on individual iPads. So the 400 people at our gala could sit down to a different experience. So you arrived at the gala and you had an iPad waiting that said, Tyler is here on behalf of Adane. And then we had a collective moment where everybody got to unlock their iPad and see a story that was meant for them. And we tried to be really intentional, pairing pregnant women in our audience with pregnant women from this community we had seen in Ethiopia, connecting parents with parents and sisters with sisters. And then we gave everybody an opportunity to donate $30 and bring clean water to their person in real time, which was a pretty easy ask. And in anticipation of their generosity, we surprised them. We had a drilling rig standing by in this community in Ethiopia. So it was 10 p.m. at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it was 6:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning in Addis, Ethiopia, and the sun was coming up over the hill, and they got to see clean water come out of the ground for the first time. I'll play you a quick video and show you what that moment looked like.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the 11th annual Charity Ball.
day by day. Hope fades away, and then we know that there is pain within. We cannot medicate.
The community may or may not be gathering around this drilling rig at 6 a.m. to see what you have just done for them. Please open up the satellite feed to Ethiopia.
Man, I would like to say that I wish I was there with you tonight, but there is no place in the world that I would rather be in this moment. I am standing in the middle of Adi Etot. All of these people have skipped their morning chores and responsibilities to come be part of this moment.
I wanna see the love all around. It's all around. I wanna know that love is all around you. It's all around you. See how it lights you up. It lights you up. See how it lights you up. It lights you up. I wanna see the love all around you, all around you. I wanna know that love is all around you. It's all around.
So that experience was incredible. And being on the other side in Ethiopia for that moment was unbelievably remarkable. But the really powerful part of the story came for me in the 2 weeks that we spent in this community. I met a man, well, really the first day that we arrived, we sit down with the community, we have sort of a welcome ceremony where we explain our purpose and what we're trying to do and make sure that people feel comfortable, establish some trust and some buy-in from the community. We answer questions, we ask questions, and vice versa. And this man, this 85-year-old man named Gebre Hiwat, was there that day, and he saw, we made eye contact from across the circle, and he gave me a wink, one of these. And I just felt like between this beautiful beard and the wink, I had to get to know this man, and I had plenty of opportunities because as the second oldest man in the village, he was too old to work, so he was really just a social butterfly. And he was often hanging out around wherever we were collecting content. And saw him one day by the water source, and he invited our team up to his house for coffee. So we got to go sit inside his home with him and his wife, and we had a translator, and got to sit for about 45 minutes and just learn about his 85 years without access to clean water. Really powerful moment. And a few days later, I was out by myself just taking photos and ran into him again. And he again motioned, come over, coffee. And I thought, this is really why I'm here, is to collect stories, to share these experiences. So I followed him back to his house. And this time I sat with his wife and him and his son, again, for about an hour. This time we had coffee. We had about 3 rounds of coffee. We shared a meal, this injera plate, and the whole time we had no translator, no way of communicating. I was talking and laughing, and he was talking and laughing, and nobody could understand a single thing that anybody was saying. But in this moment, I still got to see so much about this man, about his character, how he treated me as a guest, or how he treated his wife or his son. And he just reminded me so much of my late grandfather. And at the end of the day, we came back together as a team, and that was the thing I shared. I was like, oh my gosh, I met this guy And everybody on the team had a story like that, somebody that they had met who reminded them of someone else. So we took all the content, we ended up creating a really simple quiz on our website, just like 3 questions to establish a connection to somebody in this community, really based on the experience that we had. We asked, how old are you, to roughly put you against somebody who's your age. But then it's really about values. How do you spend your free time? What is the most important thing to you in life? And then we paired you with the person in this community who was most like you, and you got to see what their life without water looked like. And it was really well received, but I think the thing that people loved was not how personal it felt, but getting to see these really relatable characteristics and qualities and situations, people who are saving up to launch a business, or trying to navigate a messy divorce, or trying to get out of debt, or thinking about how their kids are going to finish school and where they go to live after they leave the community. I think it just stands out in my mind because it was such a powerful reminder that this sense of relatability can eliminate the space between. We are dealing with a problem that is so foreign and so far away that oftentimes it feels very forgettable and hard to imagine. And when you can make it real, create that sense of empathy, it really eliminates. It makes it feel much closer and much more personal. This 4th lesson is really that it's not just our story. One of the most powerful insights for me is there's value in giving the story away, letting people shape their own version of it and take it to their own audiences. We have seen fundraisers in particular do all kinds of really incredible things to raise money for clean water. People who are biking through the Swiss Alps. This woman in the middle, Sarah Peck, said, for my 30th birthday, if I can raise $30,000, I'm going to swim naked from Alcatraz back to San Francisco. She did both. This woman, Nona Ween, on the far right, gave up her 90-something birthday and asked for $90-something donations instead of gifts. So just over and over again, these incredible stories. And, for us, these are the real heroes. People like Maddie, whose lemonade stand is reaching an audience that we don't have access to. She's out there every weekend for an entire summer raising money. She is communicating with an audience that we maybe don't know. Noah going classroom to classroom talking about the impact of clean water is speaking to kids in a way that we don't know how to. Little girls like Nora who are just demonstrating their heart and generosity. I'll play you one more video. Nora sent us this sort of serial killer inspired note that said she had seen our video on her dad's phone. She didn't want people to die from dirty water. So she was giving us some of her money, not just some of her money. It was a $5 bill, a $2 bill, a $1 bill, a dime, and a nickel, very specific. And she included this drawing and a photo of herself, all very thoughtful. But we thought there had to have been a moment where she considered whether or not we needed the nickel, and she decided we did, and we just had to know more. So we went and tracked Nora down and ended up shooting this story, which I'll play for you right now.
Dear Charity Water, I saw your video on my dad's iPhone. I decided to give some of my money I have earned to give clean water to people who need clean water. I do not want people to die because of water. Love, Nora Shauna Jackson, age 6, first grade.
Nora doesn't see differences in people, and from a very early age, she's been very social and wants to be in on the action.
Nora's full of life and full of love. She wants to help people and animals, and she also wants to live life to the fullest.
So this is the guy that works with Charity Water that I saw in the video, and then this is me, and I'm holding a basket full of money, and then these are cups, and then this is water.
I think it was my brother actually shared on Facebook the video that kind of tells the story, of the founder and his story and why he started Charity Water and what makes Charity Water different. She was really affected by, seeing the little girls carrying the cans, and especially she was affected by the thought that women were breaking their backs, getting dirty water.
I think it's really bad to live with bad water. Charity Water has been traveling around the whole world to make wells and give people access to clean water. When I heard that we could maybe donate some of our money, I wanted to donate some of my money. So one night, I actually made that decision, sitting in my bed before I fell asleep, and I was like, should I keep my money, or should I give some away? So that I was like, I think I should give some away.
And the following morning, Nora came out for breakfast and had her little wallet with her, and she pulled out money and set it on the counter, and she said, "This is what I want to give to Charity Water."
If everybody gave $8.15, there would probably be more than 1,000 wells in India, Ethiopia.
A small act can mean the world to someone else.
I gave $8.15 because I wanted people to stop dying. What if you gave $8.15 too?
So we took Nora's video story and just turned it into a call to action for World Water Day, and simply said to our audience, Nora believed that $8.15 was going to make a difference. Let's prove to her how much it can. And we invited people to give $8.15. You can see here more than 3,600 people gave that day. We had twice as many one-time donations as we've ever seen in a day. People were taking our pre-filled donation form and switching the $8.15 to $80.15 or $108.15. One woman even gave $15,000 and just wrote a note to say, I was so moved by the heart of this little girl. So it's really just an incredible impact, and you see the way that people respond to it in that moment. Nora has spoken to people in a way that, we can't move you in that same way. One of my favorites is this one in the bottom right, which now that I'm looking at it, A2D, maybe this person was drinking, but says, I gave $8.15 because I wanted people to stop dying. A, I cried. 2, this campaign is brilliant. D, take all my money. But just a really powerful response. And we have seen this over and over again, not just from individual kids or people who are fundraising or streaming. We see it in brand partnerships. Smile Gen is a network of dental offices across the country who get very competitive about raising money to fund projects in Ethiopia in particular. They've been doing that for years. They've raised millions of dollars. A company called Loci created this sort of this chat bot experience. So you could communicate with a little girl based on a story that we had told and learn about her life without access to clean water. Our friends at Nautica have a setup where they're rounding up their purchases for Charity Water. They've given millions of dollars, but they've also brought our virtual reality story into their stores and really inspired a lot of their employees to make it really personal. The Caterpillar Foundation takes our water walk idea to their conventions and trade shows and gives people a chance to experience what it's like to carry 40 or 80 pounds of water, kids and adults alike. And then Emergency had a cool campaign they did a few years ago where they just challenged their audience to post a picture of them holding 40 pounds of anything. It could be 2 dogs or 1 small child or a whole bunch of bowling balls. And every single post would unlock a donation. So just a really powerful reminder here that people support people. Oftentimes with our fundraisers in particular, they're not giving for the cause, they're giving to reiterate the incredible values that they're seeing in that person. People support people, and one person can inspire thousands, as you saw with Nora. And then this final lesson is really just a really powerful one for me, coming from the advertising world and often thinking about your brand first, thinking about how you represent your brand or your product. Not to say that you don't think about your audience first, but maybe you're worried about being too human. And my job in particular, I have this incredible privilege of getting to travel the world and visit these communities and have these really intimate experiences where we're playing games with kids or drinking coffee inside of people's homes, really capturing stories, but proving back to people how the stories are going to be used, making people feel like their story is going to be represented in the right way. Sometimes they're very humbling moments. This was a walk for water that I did as part of a video series with this girl in Ethiopia, and she was really embarrassed for me in how many times I had to stop to catch my breath. Totally kicked my butt in that race. I have just burned through clothing in Cambodia, just sweating my clothes out of existence. Survived some sandstorms in West Africa. Felt like a scene from The Mummy. Also been welcomed into homes randomly. We're walking by a house, somebody's home in Ethiopia in this small community, and they were celebrating the baptism of a child, and just general rule that everybody who's in the area is invited, and they welcomed me in for a little bit of this local booze, which is just water and bread in a bucket that sit long enough to start to ferment a little bit. Probably wasn't the best choice for my digestive system, but really the special, beautiful moment that I got to participate in and feel like I was part of the community. The regrettable moment on the other side of that SUA, the local drink that haunted me for a little while, but really finding the humanity in all of those moments and sharing those. And we've built several series around this. We call it The Journey, where we take our monthly givers in particular to the places where they're funding this work to show them what it looks like, and not just the work that our partners are doing and the sacrifice they're making, spending so many days on the road away from their families in order to maximize their impact, but also showing these moments behind the scenes where we're hanging out and eating meals in the shade together, or learning about their families. Some of these like sillier or more fun and certainly more human moments. And then it just becomes more fun to share with kids and families. We've created these activity sheets and given families tools so that they can leverage these learning opportunities and teach their kids about the water crisis and really about values.
Guys, it took us 35 hours. I desperately need a shower and a toothbrush, but we are finally in Mekelle. Thank you.
Not ready for that one to play, but that was a trailer for the Ethiopia series that we did, just again trying to show you the human side of the work that we're doing and the people who make it possible. And the lesson here is really that the things that make us human are the things that make us the same, and we see that time and time again in the stories that we share with our spring community. So all of these beliefs really boil down to a really simple list. It is about hope and integrity and empathy and inspiration and trust. From a marketing perspective, those are the solutions to the problems that we have to solve in order to solve the water crisis. We are countering distrust or disinterest or inaction. And I don't think that they are uniquely valuable to the charity sector. I think any brand or business could benefit from leaning into these themes. And I think it's never been more important. Really part of what we're selling as marketers is a feeling, right? We have an opportunity as storytellers to write the narrative and remind people, especially in the midst of this unbelievably frustrating and challenging past year, that there is still good happening in the world, whether you work at a coffee shop or a factory or obscure brewing company or the University of Sioux Falls. And as we've learned from the more than 1 million people who supported Charity Water today, the craziest thing we can do is nothing. So that's it. I would love to answer some questions if you have them. One last thing I wanted to mention, just by being here today, you have helped the South Dakota Ad Federation fund clean water for dozens of people, about 25 people. And if you would like to learn more or get involved yourself, you can visit charitywater.org.
That's awesome, Tyler. So Beth did have a question a little bit ago. She said, how has COVID impacted the community's charity water service?
Oh, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so I can see you all. That's a great question. It is, in some ways, it's been really debilitating, and in some ways, it's made the work easier or more important, right? I think just from an awareness perspective, COVID has really helped just remind people, I guess, the value of hand washing, sanitation, and hygiene. And that's really the heart of our work. We're not just funding water projects, we're also investing in educating communities about those values. Many of our local partners have been reclassified as frontline workers or essential workers. So while many of the countries where we work have been shut down, governments are really leaning on our partners to try to do more and try to go faster, try to reach these vulnerable and really rural communities and at least educate them about coronavirus and some of the ways to combat it or some of the things to be mindful of. So it's created extra need around our work, and we've seen last year we had cut our forecast of what we thought we would raise nearly in half. We thought we'd raise about $100 million, and we rewrote our projection down to 50 million. In the end, our community showed up in an unbelievable way. We ended the year close to 90 million. So just a demonstration, I guess, of how important that narrative was to keeping our funding really strong last year.
And here is another question. This one's from Susan. How do you stay positive and energized in the face of the magnitude of the problem that you and your company are facing? Do you simply focus on small steps on the next community, the next project, and how do you make a difference? How can you make a difference?
Yeah, I think staying positive. I mean, getting to go meet our local partners and hear why they do the work that they do or why they make the sacrifices they make. That just motivates you every single day. The positivity really for me comes from our donor community, the people who are, giving up a Netflix subscription, but holding on to their Charity Water monthly giving because they want to continue to help chip away at this problem, who are invested in solving it. And it just creates a sense of urgency and motivation for all of us, I think, to just continue to work harder. And then we're constantly getting these beautiful stories on the other side of change. And I think, you can't think about the 785 million number. It's almost unfathomable. But when you really boil it down to one story, you think about one person whose life has been impacted by dirty water. We met a woman in West Africa who had, you saw earlier that hand dug hole where women were pulling water out by rope. She was pulling the rope, and she had a baby on her back, and the baby kicked, and it was enough weight distribution that it flung her into the well. So she hit her shoulder blade on the way down and fractured her shoulder. Was essentially swimming in this pool of dirty water, holding her baby up in the air, screaming for help, thinking that both of them would die. Somebody was able to save them, get them out of that hole, but it didn't change the fact that she had to come back to this dirty water source every single day, relive that fear, and continue to collect water because water is life. And I think every single donation reminds me of her story. The water crisis is not 785 million people. It's individual stories like that. So I think every donation helps keep you positive.
Excellent. So Tyler, I have a question for you. Just from strictly kind of a marketing perspective, like when you are looking to take your message, like how do you decide which platform and those kind of things? Like where are you putting your, your efforts, and how do you make those decisions for Charity Water?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we think about it by audience. We have several different segments within a major donor community, and then we really think about a mass consumer audience in terms of people who are brand new to the organization, people who are familiar with the organization but haven't taken much action, and then people who have a longer relationship with us, maybe monthly givers, people who are a little bit more invested. Every single one of those gets a different answer. So we're really fortunate to have a lot of expertise in-house, and we're thinking about the journey that each of those audiences is going on, and where they are in that journey, and then just trying to meet them where they are. But from a new audience perspective, it's really an investment in paid media that has been really successful for us over the past few years. And we have one video in particular. It's a 20-minute film called the Spring, and it's our founder's story and how his story became the story of 1 million people who've supported Charity Water today. It's 20 minutes long. There's nothing that would tell you that this should be successful, but we set it as a pre-roll on a YouTube video, and somebody's 5 seconds away from watching the cat video they intended to watch, and then suddenly they're 20 minutes into our film and joining the Spring. So it is like, it converts at a crazy rate. But we've been really investing a lot in the paid piece, specifically around Facebook and YouTube.
Excellent. Dee, do you want to go ahead and share or ask your question?
Yeah, I know, I mean, this, as I mentioned in the chat, the story of the people served by your work is just incredibly emotional and heartwarming. I remember several years ago hearing the story of Scott Harrison and how he came about founding Charity Water. And I don't know if there's a way you can tell that in 1 to 2 minutes. That's probably its own 1 hour long presentation, but I know that is an impactful story for people to hear as well.
It is absolutely worth going and watching the 20-minute video if you're interested, and you can find it on our website. But yes, the quick summary is that Scott grew up in a really pretty standard household, Christian family, really good upbringing. He had left home to go to New York City and abandon his faith and become a party promoter and really focus on the life that he wanted, and continued, I mean, was really successful, but had just become the worst version of himself. And I think as he got to a place where he thought he had everything that he wanted, money and drugs and models and all kinds of stuff, I think he was on vacation in Uruguay with a bunch of people on like a fancy vacation where they were spraying champagne into the air and just wasted all the time. He realized how unhappy he was, and he just made a 180 decision. He walked away from his nightlife job and went in search of a organization that would let him volunteer as a photographer so he could go experience something else. And spent a bunch of time with an organization called Mercy Ships, a hospital ship that was going from community to community and providing these transformative facial surgeries, reconstructive surgeries, and got to take people from the ship back home post-op and see the reception into the community, but started to see that a lot of these problems were inspired or started with dirty water. And he came back really fired up about starting an organization that could counter this problem. And just to give you an idea of how naive he was, it's charity : water, because in his head, we'll start with water, then we'll do charity : education, we'll do charity : malaria, like we'll just knock these big issues out one by one. Water has proved to be a much tougher challenge than he imagined in the beginning. But so much of the brand is really defined by his experiences with charity and just the general distrust. Charity Water gives 100% of public donations to the local partners that we're working with. and we fundraise separately for our operations costs, because we want to be able to make that promise to people. If you give $5 or $100, every single penny is going to go to support the work. We prove every project on Google Maps on our website, so people can see the impact and the direct result of the money that they've given. So just a lot of effort to really reinvent charity, to try to think about how we do this in a different way. It's a really powerful story, and it's packed with a bunch of mini stories that you will love if you haven't seen it.
Awesome. There is a comment and a question here from JoJo. She goes, "It's literally why I know about Charity Water, that 20-minute video." So it's clear that you're intentional with the relationships that you all create, and the care in which you build comfortability with the water recipients before documenting their story. Do you all circle back with the subjects of those short films and share the footage?
Yeah, we do. I mean, this is one of my favorite parts. I think we have the advantage because we're working with local partners. We have access to these communities, and it's the best when we can go back and be part of this moment. And I have, in several cases, been able to go back to Uganda and play the video for everybody in the community. The VR film that we shot, we took a VR headset back to Ethiopia and showed Salam, the girl who inspired the story and was the hero of the story, the VR headset. She got to experience her story herself. So we have a lot of full circle moments like that. And at the very least, we send photos and video content to our partners so they can go back to the community and show them to people. But it's a really important part is closing the loop and not exploiting people for their story, really bringing them in to the impact and sharing the results as well.
And there was just another few comments in here, not necessarily questions. That was from, where to go? Greg Olson, brilliant campaign that came from the heart, which is always the best source. Thank you for your work. Mm-hmm. And then Adam had designated Charity Water as his birthday campaign. So it looks like a number of people during this session had donated to his birthday campaign. So that was exciting. Let's see what else I missed as far as comments. Dave Smetter left earlier. He says, "I apologize, I had to drop off. This is amazing and awesome. Tyler, thanks so much for the entire team and what you're doing. It's unbelievable."
Oh, that's great. Thank you all. I love the excitement here.
Anything else I missed? Does anybody else have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question or drop it in a chat.
I guess I'll chime in. I don't know exactly how to phrase this, but obviously video is very impactful with what you do. Maybe I'll just word it this way. How much do you do of written storytelling, and how do you use that effectively?
Yeah, I mean, video is you can accomplish so much more in video in a short amount of time, and trying to get somebody to sit down and thoughtfully read a really well-crafted story. It doesn't convert in the same way, but I think there are pockets of our audience who are deep enough into their relationship with Charity Water that they value and look for or expect that. So we do use it. It's often for our monthly giving community, just updates. We try to provide them with real-time updates of stuff that they are directly funding, or stories that would help educate them and make them feel like a global citizen, about climate change and how that's impacting our work, or about how we choose where we work, some of the decision making that goes into the programmatic side. And some of that is often written content, but it's harder. It's so much harder. And I think sadly, there's less appreciation for it. People, attention spans are too short.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge.
Well, it's funny. I mean, even we've been working on this climate change piece lately, and you write this beautiful long post that's thoughtfully explaining all these issues, and then you boil it down to an Instagram carousel that's like 8 slides. You're like, oh my gosh, we just stripped out like all the best parts of this, but that's maybe what it takes to get it out to people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a question here from Susan. Tyler, will you write a book one day?
Oh, Susan, that is a great question. I would love to. I would really love to. And I have maybe a couple of different ideas around it. One, well, we don't have to get into one. I would like to. I've probably traveled to the field 15 times with the organization and just spent maybe a collective 10 months in these communities and with our partners. And it's often said in the organization that I have the best job because of that responsibility, that honor. And there's just an infinite amount that I could share. And, you know, it's like we rarely have time to unpack it all. So there's so much inside here that I would love to get out there. I hope so.
And then Beth says, I can't imagine what your content calendar looks like.
I saw that. You are right, Beth. I mean, just like everything, planning people's deliverables, our creative team operates like an in-house agency. So we're serving the needs of all these other teams and departments, but it means that every goal in the organization is also our goal. And we're constantly going in a whole bunch of different directions. Our creative team is 7 of us: writers, designers, filmmakers, and a social media person. And then we work closely. We have an internal marketing team and an engineering team and a product team. So those 3 are kind of thinking about what the user experience looks like, and then how we take it out and share it, or how we market it to new audiences.
And then you're probably reading this, Tyler, but
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and let you address that question if you want to reiterate the question, or I can read it.
No, I'm on it. I had never thought of the power of advertising for moving the needle in terms of raising fundraising levels and impact. Can you speak to why advertising is essential to charity and Charity Water's work? Again, I think this is like the nuance here is really trying to create attention. You know, in the for-profit world, you're trying to create awareness, and that's maybe a jingle or a tagline or some branding, some billboards. You're just showing up in people's worlds. Even if Charity Water does that, it's not good enough. Like we have to create actual care in people. So we have to get them to want to pay attention, and then slowly nurture this relationship and make it more important and establish some trust and give them a sense of belief that they can make a difference. So the job is totally different, but I think of all of that as this advertising or marketing piece is really, how do we take people on this like emotional journey and make this work feel important to them? How do we give them a sense of identity in this work? You're welcome, Jojo. And Lucas said, how did you become a creative director? Long journey, Lucas. I mean, I worked in advertising for years as a copywriter, and then sort of evolved into this like content manager guy, thinking about video stories on behalf of brands. My job was the same, telling stories and trying to inspire people to take action. And then at Charity Water, it's just longevity. I've been there for 8 years, and I outlasted everybody else. Lucas, that's the reality.
Thanks for your answer. I'm a content strategist currently, so that's relevant to me. Outlast everyone.
That's perfect.
Excellent. Is there any other questions? We're at right at 1 p.m. So we're right on the edge of the back end of the presentation. But there's a few more questions. Tyler might be willing to stay a few minutes longer.
Sure.
But it sounds like everybody enjoyed your presentation. There's a lot of thank yous and kudos and things like that.
I'm so glad. It really is fun, and I only wish we could have done it in person.
Us too.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Well, this looks like. Oh, Jojo, was you waving for a question or waving?
Just saying thank you and bye.
Okay.
After getting back into my inbox, so
Yeah.
Thank you for
appreciate
being
it.
here,
Thanks,
Jojo.
guys. Yeah, it was really, really informative and illuminating. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for coming.